中島さんは今何をおっしゃいと言いますか。あなた遅いです。
Next movie is a true story. It's Railway Man. I did see something similar to this story before. It's a British story, British-Australian, and it's about prisoners of war who were captured in Singapore, who were taken to build as slaves to build the Japanese railroad for the Japanese during World War II and the mistreatment that they took. But it's the post-traumatic stress disorder that they suffered afterwards, a lot of them committing suicide because they couldn't handle the memories and the nightmares. And back in the 1950s and 60s, this took place in the 60s, this movie, there was no cure, there was no dealing with it. But this one particular soldier married a girl in the 1960s who helped him survive all the trauma and got him through it. Eventually, they found who they thought was the torturer in their internment camp in Malaysia, where they were being enslaved. The man who had beaten him nearly to death several times trying to get information from him. And he decided that he's going to go back to Malaysia, where this Japanese man is actually working, to try and redeem himself by presenting the Japanese horrors of these labor camps to the public, because he was there, and he found it hard to live with him. He can't live with it, so he has to make sure nobody ever forgets, so he works in this as a tourism industry. So this British officer, ex-officer, decides that the only way he can get revenge for his buddy who just hung himself is to go there and fulfill their both needs to kill this guy. This is a true story. So he shows up in Malaysia, he waits for the crowd to leave the tourism area, he goes in, he confronts this Japanese man, he puts him through the tears and the turns and twists things around, but then he realizes that this man was the interpreter who did not actually commit the crime of torture, but was more or less rude to him, and the torturing was actually being done by another man who didn't speak English, so he was actually committing the offense. And then he remembered that this torturer had actually beat up the interpreter at one point, because the interpreter was finding it hard to deal with what was going on in the camp. This is a very dramatic movie. It is a true story. These two men stayed friends after this. He decided he wasn't going to kill this guy, and they stayed friends right up to the end of their lives. The Japanese officer, the interpreter, he died in 2011, and the man this story is about, he died in 2012. You can see their up-to-date pictures. At the end of the movie, they will show the photographs of these real men as they looked just before their death and during the 90s when they were hanging out together. It's basically a story of forgiveness and redemption and seeing the reality rather than the fantasy of a horrible situation. I very much recommend this movie. It is a great study in sociology. The movie's called Railway Man. It's great for your collection. If you study history, sociology, you need this film. This is a very important movie to watch.